Hello and welcome to Autism Athletics. This is my first online podcast episode, so just bear with me. My next episode is going to be with a friend of mine named Aaron Harrison, and he is going to explain to you where all he's played and coached. So please give it up for Aaron Harrison.
Thanks for having
So,
me, John. This is
so we'll start with your playing background. Where did you grow up playing ball?
I grew up playing. I went to Harrison High School, so I played basketball and baseball over there. Finished playing basketball all 4 years, but ended up playing baseball not at the school. I didn't make it my junior year, coming off a basketball season, but still love baseball, and even though I went to Harrison and I teach at Alatoona, I still enjoyed my time there and loved playing basketball for the Hoyas.
That's awesome, man. So you're also a coach. Tell me how you got into that and where all you've coached.
How I got into coaching is a total God thing, and it was actually through Chad, who you did your last podcast with, I think.
Yes.
Chad, his wife Shara babysat us as kids, and wiped our butts from the time we were newborns and until we were all elementary age or whatever. And so we just knew each other through church, and then reconnected with Chad probably 2009, 2010. And he ran into Marcus Hood, who was the head coach at Alatoona at the time. And Coach Hood was looking for a middle school coach. And Chad was like, hey, I know a guy who's in college who's been looking to get into coaching. And he dropped my name. And then Marcus reached out to me. And once I graduated college, I got the job teaching math at Alatoona. And so, you look back and it's just God was orchestrating through relationships my next path of teaching and coaching. So that's how I ended up at Alatoona.
Okay. Um, Let me ask you this. So, so tell everybody what sports do you coach? I know you coach more than just basketball.
Yeah, I've coached mostly basketball for the last 11 years, but I've also coached boys lacrosse, girls lacrosse, and now I coach flag football as well. Lacrosse was more of, hey, they needed somebody. I had never picked up a stick in my life. I knew nothing about the sport, but I ended up loving it. And then coached the girls side of the game right before COVID hit, and that was a lot of fun. Different game, but fun to coach girls and learn that side of it. Stepping away from basketball this year because I told our current head coach, I'm like, hey, when we start having kids, I'm gonna step away and not coach basketball. And so now I'm just coaching flag football, which is a relatively new GHSA sport. I think their first state championship was in 2021. So we're in our fifth or sixth season of that, and it is an absolute blast. Hillgrove, matter of fact, has a state championship
Yes,
in
they do.
flag football. Yep, yep. So that's been a ton of fun, and I love coaching the girls. And it's just fun to coach an outdoor sport, honestly, because basketball, you're cooped up inside. You get to school and it's dark. You leave school and it's still dark. So I've really enjoyed the outdoor aspect of coaching flag, and just the girls. They're a ton of fun to coach.
So, as somebody that knows nothing about lacrosse, just kind of get give the fans like a brief summary of lacrosse, and then go into the difference of coaching the boys team versus coaching the girls team.
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. Lacrosse is like a combination of hockey, soccer, and football, I guess, because you get the hitting, and I'd say basketball's in this as well. You get to hit people like you do in football, but there's a lot of X's and O's, moving parts, similar to a motion offense in basketball. The transition game is a lot like hockey and soccer. Hockey definitely, because people are always running on and off the field, and you just sub people off like in live time. So that took a while to get used to. I still don't understand, the box and everything. But the game in and of itself, it's sweet because every time there's a goal, the clock stops, everybody erupts, goes crazy, and then you reset with the face-off. And so it's a lot. If you have a really good face-off guy, you can play make it, take it, because you're just winning the face-off, and then you go down and score. But I love defense of basketball, so it's very similar to defense in basketball. But you get all the fun aspects of, similar to scoring a touchdown or a goal in soccer. it all stops. The place erupts after every goal. But then you get the big hits. You get the little plays. That something like the offensive line would make a big block. You get that in lacrosse. A defender does something well that might go unnoticed. But I love when the little guy gets to be praised, and lacrosse has a lot of those opportunities as well. Um, your second part of that question, coaching boys versus coaching girls. So girls lacrosse is totally different game. Like there's like a whistle all the time. There's these different rules because the girls don't wear helmets. They wear just these masks. So you can't shoot a ball at a girl's face. There's just less protection. So they're trying to protect the girls. And so there's all these new different rules, and that's always hard to figure out, I guess, especially as somebody that didn't grow up playing lacrosse. But the biggest difference in coaching girls and boys, girls they want to do what you ask for the most part. They're good listeners. You're really challenging how you teach something, because whatever you say, they're gonna do. And even if you meant something, you're like, dang, I did say do this, and they're gonna do exactly what you say. So you have to be very. It's taught me to be more precise with what I say. Whereas with boys, you just kind of give them the goal, and they're going to do their own thing on their way there. Especially with basketball, if you tell them to do something the easy way, they're going to take the hard way. They're going to want to cross over between the legs, behind the back. You know how all that goes. So
Yes.
um, that part I've enjoyed, because girls, they want to do right, and they'll do exactly what you ask of them. And so it's pretty refreshing. As far as lacrosse, the girls' net is so much flatter. It's like you those poor girls, they're catching like with hardly any net, whereas the guys, you've got much more netting to catch with. So I didn't even pick up a girl stick when I coached it, because I couldn't catch. Those girls were much more talented than me, so that made it a little bit tough. But yeah, those tons of talent in both sports, just a little different in how those sports operate, I guess.
So flag football, I wouldn't say it's like brand new, but it's still relatively new. Did you know anything about it going into it?
I did. Going into coaching it, because I've been playing for the last, it's been 15 years playing it. Had only coached a middle school boys team over at Hillgrove, actually in a league over there, but
Wow.
had a lot to learn, because I'm calling plays offensively, so I've learned a lot from a few college coaches. Um, Learned a lot just from our high school coaches, talking about pre-snap motion and talking about different levels of receivers and stuff that I did not understand beforehand. But I've learned a lot from just picking minds of good football guys.
Yeah, on my last podcast interview, I learned a lot about flag football from Chad. I mean, I already knew some, but it was really interesting for him to go into it.
Yeah. There's as with any sport, you don't really know it until you start diving into it. Like, wow, there's a lot of ins and outs and X's and O's and intricacies of it. And I've definitely learned those, and I'm still learning them as a coach.
So the next question I have, and this was kind of the main part I wanted to go into because this is
Yeah.
kind of how we've reconnected. But let's go into basketball. I know you're not coaching anymore, but just tell me what that was like.
What coaching was like?
Yeah, coaching basketball.
Okay. Well, before that, you mentioned us reconnecting, so I'm going to let the fans know that I was out scouting Hillgrove. I think it was 2021, and I was at Hiram scouting Hillgrove, and my boy Jay Lou is up there in the stands watching Hillgrove at Hiram, and I've got my notebook out. I'm writing stuff down, and then I think I texted you. I'm like, dude, you said come sit with me. So yeah, we kind of got reconnected through coaching basketball. But man, this guy is unrivaled in his Hillgrove fandom. So yeah, you've definitely set a high bar for fans everywhere. But as far as coaching, man, coaching basketball has been uh, so much fun. I love the X's and O's. I love the chess match. Always believing that the five guys you have on the floor are more if they work together, they can be more powerful than the other 5 who might be more talented, might be bigger, might be faster. And at Alatoona, we've rarely had the biggest team or the tallest team. So we've just had to, kind of be that gritty team that executes and defends well and plays together. And so that's been something that I've really enjoyed about my time coaching is we've never really had the superstar. We've had a lot of kids play college basketball and they were incredibly talented high school kids, but especially this last season, we won the region. We were 16-0 in the region, which is a tough thing to do. Had to beat a few teams 3 times. And, it's you can beat a team once, you can even beat a team twice, but beating a team 3 times, that really challenges you as a coach because now teams have seen your best shot and your second best shot. Well, now you've got to give them your third best shot, and they're going to adjust to you. And the chess match of it is what I've enjoyed the most. And I'd say I've grown the most in appreciating what you do in practice translates to the games. I think a lot of times we look at coaches in games and say, well, why aren't they just doing this? It's probably because they haven't practiced it, And so I learned to value the preparation and the practice and that kind of thing. But it's nothing like a Tuesday or a Friday night game. You still get the butterflies and the jitters before the first tip, and then you can be a nice guy before the game, but that game starts and you're yelling at the refs. I lose my mind a little bit sometimes, but yeah, coaching basketball, man, it is so much fun, and especially in high school, nothing beats a good high school basketball atmosphere. You got student section, you got people booing you on the road, and it's just it's fun, and seeing these young men commit to something bigger than themselves. That's been a real cool thing to see.
So I know in football they have like an offensive defense coordinator, all that. Do y'all have specific roles for coaches?
Some coaching staffs do, yeah. So with Coach Hood, there wasn't necessarily offensive defensive coordinator. We kind of all had our hand in both jars, that kind of thing. But with Coach Phillips, the guy who has replaced Coach Hood and who I've coached with the last 5 years, yeah, he was like, hey, I want you to be the defensive guy. He was offensive guy. He gave your boy Ben Drake. Have you had Ben on the podcast yet?
No, not yet.
Okay. Yeah. Ben, who's kind of replacing me now as the lead assistant, Ben was in charge of inbound plays and player development, that kind of stuff. So yeah, there's definitely a balance to delegating versus, trying to carry it all as a head coach. And both the coaches I've worked for, they do a good job of delegating for sure.
Hold on. So I helped run a basketball camp with you 1 year. So how do you think stuff
Yeah.
like that prepares kids for basketball, and do you think it really helps them?
You were saying, how does basketball camp prepare kids?
Yeah, how did that help? How does that help kids?
Yeah. So, yep. John was was a community coach for our kids camp. Yep. We loved having you there. And I think that was the first year Ben came on to the staff. And so we were happy to have you. But I think kids camps, they can be tough because you got 200 kids in 2 gyms, and it's there's a lot going on. And so I think for one, it's kids, they may not end up on the team they want to end up on, and they may not end up playing with people they want to play with, but you kind of got to fight through that adversity, and you got to figure it out, and you have to be willing to do whatever your coaches ask of you and that kind of thing. And so in that aspect, I think it's good for mental preparation for kids as they go on to other team sports and that kind of thing. But I also think it can be good for skill development. They learn some stuff from our coaches. But the big thing about camp is that it's coached by players, and so they get to see our varsity players coaching them. So it's good for our varsity guys because they get to see what it's like to coach. And then these young campers that come in, they get to be coached by some of these kids they look up to and watch on Friday nights and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think camp has a huge benefit for everybody involved. Even us who plans it, it definitely humbles me every year because I'm more tired. It seems like every year that we do a camp. Um, but but yeah, I'd say it's very beneficial. I love camps and I love getting to run those and kids coming out because it's just it puts kids out of their comfort zone sometimes, and I think that's great for kids to experience, especially at a young age.
Okay, and then back to coaching in high school. Just give me like one or two or a few of like your favorite memories, like from a certain game or just from a certain time or something.
Heck yeah, I've got a bunch of them. Let's see, my first 2 years coaching at Altoona, we played for state championships. So 2015 and then in 2016, and we lost both state championships. So that was
Oh,
tough. Yeah, I know, real bummer. But I'd say the my first like real big memory. We were playing East Paulding in 2014. It was that 2014-15 season, and I think it might have been our first home, maybe first home region game. Definitely our first home game. It wasn't region, I don't think. And we were down by 10 with like a minute and a half left. And I'm like, dude, we're going to lose. We're going to freaking lose. And we come back. We pull this kid off the bench with like 9 seconds left, and he hits a three from the volleyball line to send us into overtime. And it
wow.
was, I mean, I remember like I was shaking. I'm trying to write stuff down on my clipboard and my hands shaking. And we go into overtime and end up winning. And that team, that happened a lot with those teams because we won 60 games in those 2 seasons. So
Wow.
yeah, you get to see a ton of comebacks and stuff that you're just like, this should have never ever happened. Um, but that team was just resilient. We had some really good players on that team, so that one was special. Definitely that play, just because I remember like my hand was actually shaking. Coaching flag football, we played in the state championship 2 years ago. We lost that one to Pope by a point, and so that was a tough loss, but something I remember. We were down um, we were down 8 points and had to. I think we had the ball back with like a minute and 25, and we marched right down the field. My girl Sophia catches an over the head like corner route to tie the game in the bins. We're at the Falcon Stadium, and then the opportunity to tie it with the extra point. We didn't get the extra point, but um, yeah, that was a pretty special experience as a coach. Just calling plays at the bins, and then you get girls that execute essentially a 2-minute drill, like flawlessly, and then score in the state championship. That's always a fun memory. And then I would say being in the state championship, those were definitely super cool memories. Specific play, I'll tell you specific play. Actually, Chad was at this game. We were playing Jonesboro, and this was so we played state championship, Final Four, 3 straight years.
Wow.
So this was yeah, I know it was a special run. The Final Four year, we're playing Jonesboro in the Elite Eight, and it was at our place, and they had MJ Walker, who was a 5-star, ended up playing at FSU. And so everybody's like, "Oh, bro, MJ Walker," and he was legit. And Jonesboro was huge, and they were good. But they ran a little bit of a trapping zone, and I think it was like a 1-1-3 or 1-3-1. And so they were definitely, if we could move the ball well enough, there were some opportunities for us. Well, our point guard had the ball top of the key, right side, and he's dribbling, and he just throws a ball. I'm like, what is he doing? Throws it towards the rim, and Trey Dooms, who uh, ended up going to West Virginia, he catches it one-handed, alley-oop slam, and the place goes nuts. Chad, I've got video of it still in my phone, and Trey dunks it, and Chad's in the camera shot. Chad starts stomping up and down the stairs, celebrating, and that place was going wild. So that was a pretty special memory, just because it was such a big moment, and Trey was such a good player. That team was a really good team, and a one-handed alley oop. It's tough to forget a play like that.
So I know you were an assistant coach. So how much preparation do you do before a game?
Man, as the defensive coordinator the last 5 years, there's a ton of preparation. You're looking at their sets that they're going to run most of the time. That's a big part of preparation, and running a matchup zone that we did. You kind of you kind of have to be prepared for what this might look like. And hey, here's how we want to defend it. Here's where we want to keep guys, that kind of thing. So for instance, like a team like Hiram runs a lot of 1-4 high sets. So they've got 4 guys kind of across the free throw line, across the court. And so we prepare for stuff like that. And then you play teams like Cass, who's in our region, and they're just run and gun. They want to, 4 or 5 passes and then shoot a 3. So you get to see these different styles and these different plays, and that's where the chess match really comes in. And so you do a ton of preparation film wise. You break down film, you do your coach breakdown, and then you kind of pick a few plays that you want the boys to see, and you put those, you watch those in film session, and then you got to go on the court and actually execute what you want. And you got to do it in a short amount of time because kids' attention spans, they're not going to last. And so there's that tough kind of formula you're trying to create. It's like, okay, I want to be effective. I want this to be quick, but you want it to work on game night too. So that's what an assistant coach kind of looks like. And then from there, it's a lot of just small suggestions or not nitpicky stuff, but I guess that's the way to describe it.
I'm
Small
sure there
fixes.
are coaches are nitpicky.
Yeah. My players would probably say that we're super nitpicky, but that comes with the territory, I guess.
So I know from just being around high school basketball that like when you get into region play and stuff, you start playing what 2 games a week.
Yeah, your Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Friday, and then you'll sprinkle in a Saturday here and there as well. So yeah, Tuesday, Friday, and then you get that break, a little bit of a break for Christmas. And Christmas though, you're playing three games in 4 nights usually, something like that. Sometimes 3 games in 3 nights. So Christmas break's not really much of a break as far as playing, but you get to play different teams and kind of different venues and that kind of thing. But yeah, man, region play it can be especially with the region we're in now. We're traveling up to Dalton, and we've got Cartersville, Cass, Cedartown. Yeah, so you're traveling past Bucky's a few times to play a region game.
Yeah, so I know in like football, in a way, it's a little bit easier because you got like a week to prepare between games. But like when you get to region play, you only have like a couple of days. So just take me into that, and then I have one more follow up question. What's
Okay.
it like? You have to play a team multiple times. Like what kind of adjustments do you have to make?
Yeah. So yeah, the quick turnaround usually, you never want to look ahead of games, but we would do, if we have a Tuesday, Friday, we would on Saturday, we would look ahead to Tuesday and Friday. So we kind of have film prepared for Tuesday night, really for Monday's practice, and then again for Wednesday, Thursday's practice. So you kind of prepare, 2 at a time in some instances. So that's, preparation is film, but you're also, kind of what I said earlier, teams aren't just going to do magical stuff in the game. It's what they practice, and what they practice is probably what they've already shown you on film. And so once you played them once, you kind of have a pretty good idea of what they have to offer. But as far as when you're the 1 seed and, going into the region tournament, we were 14-0, teams are going to throw new stuff at us. So to your second question, kind of how do you prepare for their adjustments? Based on personnel, based on maybe some stuff they showed us. If we had a tight game with them in the regular season and they showed us, hey, they might do this at the end of the game, or they might try to box and one this guy, they might show you little wrinkles like that in a regular season match. But you really want to be prepared for that stuff come region tournament, come playoffs. And surprisingly, we were always prepared for a box and one, right? Somebody's going to try to take away our point guard who ended up winning region player of the year. Somebody's going to try to take away our best shooter, who was actually region player runner up. And so you're always prepared for that sort of stuff. As far as X's and O's, we, with Coach Hood, I learned how to do drills that would prepare us really for anything, and not to panic no matter what the look was the defense gave us, because you can't predict everything. You can't say, oh, I know John's about to come at me with a 2-3 zone. Oh, I know he's about to come at me with a 1-2-2 trapping. We don't know what it's going to be. So we have a few principles that we stick to. and then trust the boys like, hey, we've worked on this. We're going to make adjustments based on what they give us, so that we're not stuck to one formation. We kind of evolve with what that other team is doing. So that's helped a ton with our adjustments, and especially defensively, running a matchup zone, that's definitely helpful. But teams, they make adjustments as far as personnel, but not a ton of X's and O's adjustments. They're not going to change their entire offense for one game. But that's the chess match is what makes the region tournament so much fun. That who are they going to put on this guy? Are they going to press us? That's really that's how you change the game, or potentially, you could press the team, you could get out and pressure them if you want to be like a team like Hillgrove, who's going to full court press you. They're going to press you in the half court, and you're going to be ready for that dogfight, pretty much for the entire 32 minutes. So teams can try to do that, but if that's not their DNA, they're probably going to struggle at it. But yeah, region tournament, man, nothing like that. Because third time around, like I was saying before, you've beat them twice, so it's like it's a tough balance of do we sit back and keep doing what we're doing because it's worked, or do we have to be ready, to add a next level of something, or keep that. Really, it's the focus, keeping the boys focused, because in their minds, like, oh, we beat this team twice, it's no big deal. We've blown them out once, and just keeping them focused. Like, hey, this is region tournament. Beating somebody 3 times is really hard to do. And so I'd say that's a big part of it, is adjusting to the boys' perspective and the boys' mentality more so than the X's and O's type of thing.
Yeah, when I think of playing somebody multiple times, it's kind of like in the NBA when you play a 7-game series.
Yeah, yeah, you're not kidding. I mean, especially when it goes to 7 games, like everybody knows Halliburton's getting the ball. Everybody knows they're going to run a pick and roll, and I know it. Yeah, it's a little. We're not nearly as talented as the NBA, or nearly as
Right.
intricate in the offense. But pretty much everybody's running a ball screen. Pretty much everybody's can guard 1 through 5 in the NBA, and so with them, I think they're trying to get you in mismatches. But I'm like, it's been 7 games. How many mismatches can you find? But they always seem to find it, man. Those guys are good.
And then I got I guess it's kind of a coaching question. So you're a teacher too.
Yeah. Well, they say I I spend, or 90% of my paycheck is because I teach, but it feels like 90% of my time is spent coaching. So there's definitely an imbalance there. But the teaching side, I've learned to appreciate it more and more and more, because you get to see kids, for 90 minutes in a classroom setting. You get to meet kids you'd never meet on the basketball court or on the flag football field. So I've actually really loved teaching in that aspect, because kids get to see you in a different light. You get to see kids in a different light. You get to motivate in a different way. You have to explain things in a different way. So it is challenging as a teacher. It's a fun challenge in different ways. Whereas coaching, is much more about business, less joking. Actually, we still have a ton of fun coaching, don't get me wrong. But, your mission, and the boys know their mission, or the girls know their mission. Whereas the classroom, it's a little more open. And, I've got ADD, so I'm always, bouncing around. My kids, my students either love me or they hate me, because I'm just always chasing a squirrel. But they, these students have definitely made me enjoy teaching much more. I got into it for coaching initially, but I've come to love teaching math almost as much as coaching.
Okay, so we've gotten into all your coaching and your playing. So has nothing to do with any of that. But
It's all good.
for both of us, we're both Georgia Tech fans. So how
Yes,
did
sir.
you start liking Georgia Tech?
I started liking Georgia Tech. My grandfather, my dad's dad, liked Tech, and he didn't go there. He barely graduated high school. He may not even graduate high school. And my dad didn't go to Tech. My mom didn't go to Tech. I don't know. I think I just knew everybody was a Georgia fan, and I'm like, I don't want to be like everybody else. And so because my grandfather was a Tech fan, I stuck with it. My brothers are Georgia fans now, and I don't know. It just seems like everybody's a Georgia fan, and it's been fun to kind of zig when everybody zags a little bit. And I don't know, being a Tech fan's fun. We right down in Atlanta. I love the campus. I think we've had some really fun teams over the last 15, 20 years, basketball and football. So yeah, that's how I started to be a Tech fan. And then in college, one of my best friends went to Tech, and so we traveled for the 2009 ACC championship game. I was always down there for big games. I got to travel, to a lot of different schools to see Tech play. So yeah, it's um, through friends, through family. I've learned to appreciate Tech even more and more, because nobody's a Tech fan. When you're growing up, you're like the only
Right.
guy, and everybody loves to troll you when they lose. So that was always
Not
fun.
this year.
But not this year, baby. 5-0.
Yes. Yeah. So my friend Elijah, who you may know, me and his family, we've gone down to a few Tech basketball games because Elijah's a big basketball fan. But
Mm-hmm.
they're actually pretty fun, and you can get actually really cheap tickets. So we should totally go to another one. I think they're pretty fun.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we got a lot of things we got to plan. We got to see a Tech football game, Tech basketball. I agree. Tech basketball, the new arena is sweet too. And I
Yes.
love Damon Stoudemire. Growing up, I love the NBA, and so having Damon Stoudemire be our coach, it's pretty cool. I don't know how good he is X's and O's wise, but yeah, it's fun to have a big name like him, and I think the campus is underrated. I think the gym's underrated too.
Well, that's all I have for you today, and I really appreciate you coming out. So yeah, just thank you for your time, Aaron, and I really appreciate it. So fans,
Yeah.
just give them for Aaron.
Thanks for having me, John. I am humbled that you asked me to do this. I know we've been talking about trying to do this for a minute. Super proud of you for doing this podcast. I love this idea, and you've got a great sports mind. You ask great questions, and I hope I give you something to edit and make this thing sound good.
Thank you so much. All right, I'll see you.
All right, buddy.
Bye.